What's up, you guys? Someone recently asked me about when they should think about replacing the trucks that are coming along in a FedEx route business that they're looking to acquire. And the answer to that question is, it depends. And this video is going to go over a lot of different things that it starts to depend on. Because the first thing you need to understand is that fleet management is an art. It is not a science. And it takes time to be able to figure out what that art is for you. And it's going to, again, depend on those variables that we're going to start to go through today. So what a lot of people do is they will try to ask contractors what they do. Hey, when should I replace this? I'll ask a contractor. They know what to do. And some contractors will say, hey, you should replace it once it gets to 500,000 miles or 20 years old or whatever. And another contractor will say, hey, don't let them get over 200,000 miles. You need to replace them. And when people see this, they're like, well, wait, I'm confused. This guy's in the same business, using the same trucks, but they're doing different things. Is one contractor an idiot and the other contractor's like business savvy or whatever? It doesn't work like that because, again, it's an art and it depends. And when we start to go through some of these things, this will all make a lot more sense to you. So sometimes people ask the broker or the seller how long their truck is going to typically last. And the broker may very honestly say, hey, a lot of times these things can get 600,000 miles. Well, that's true if you're driving them cross country, it's easy highway miles and whatnot. But if you're driving these trucks, let's say a Freightliner P500, and you're driving that on a FedEx route, you got potholes and starting and stopping the engine 100 times in a day. You got the speed bumps, you got stop and go traffic, lots of other issues that probably are going to be so hard on that vehicle that you're not going to make it to 600,000 miles. But the broker can honestly cite all sorts of references that show these trucks getting 600,000 miles. So it's always important to remember that when asking certain questions, to remember not just what's possible, but whether it's probable. So it is possible to get 600,000 miles out of these things. Is it probable? Absolutely not. Not on a FedEx route, right? So that's an important thing to remember. And so to tell you a quick story, there was a contractor friend that I knew, and he had over 1 million miles on his truck. Now, is everyone getting 1 million miles? No. But the way this guy was doing it is that whenever his engine would blow up, he would just drop a new one in there, spend 10 grand on it, and then reset the odometer and keep on going. And brokers and sellers love this sort of story because they could say, oh, yeah, the fleet's old, but really you just need to drop a new engine in there and then you're good to go. It's like, yeah, it's kind of works, but not really, right? If that actually worked, we'd all be driving around in 1982 Freightliners with a new engine constantly. It doesn't work because everything around this brand new engine is like warped and cracked and rusted and broken and it just doesn't work. So a lot of people don't do that. So again, it's possible, but it's not something that you really want to do. So you have to be aware of that. And so if you were to look at contractors across the entire US and looked at how they were managing their fleet, you'd see wildly different stuff. And so it's not like one contractor's like an idiot and the other's like a genius or whatever. It doesn't really work like that because, again, it's an art and it's catered to each individual contractor. And that art is really formed by thinking about 4 different categories. The first category is the contractor themselves. The next is the route type, the route density, and then the route condition. And we're going to go through a couple examples under each of those sorts of ideas, and that will hopefully help you start to be able to craft a better art of fleet management for yourself. And so one of the examples under the contractor category may be whether you're handy or not. So for example, let's say a contractor has a really old fleet and every other day there's a caliper that busts or a hose that cracks or whatever. That mechanically inclined contractor can deal with that stuff for super cheap, right? Versus if he did not have any of those skills or didn't want to deal with that, maybe it's an $800 bill, $1,200 bill or whatever. So for the guy that has no mechanical skills whatsoever, he's getting bled to death by these little repair bills constantly. So he has to basically replace his fleet with something new versus the contractor that's handy and he can say, hey, I can fix this stuff myself. I don't need to spend the money on a new truck. I can go ahead, increase my cash flow and just deal with some of this stuff myself. Now, sometimes people will ask that are buying these businesses, they'll say, well, does the owner drive? And the broker will say, no, he sure doesn't. You can verify that. Well, he doesn't, but he's working on the trucks constantly, right? So it's the things that they slip in there. It's like, hey, they were telling you the truth. You just forgot to ask whether the contractor was repairing this stuff because you presume no one would do that. They do. So that's one thing to think about. So another thing under the contractor category is determining how available you are for this business. So sometimes people are convinced that this is some semi-absentee side hustle and they try to keep their job and run the FedEx routes on the side. And if you're not available for getting phone calls and handling issues in the middle of the day, there's going to be a lot more problems. And so for example, let's say your trucks break down in the middle of the day and your manager calls up and says, "Hey man, I got the mobile mechanic out here, but he says it's going to be about $5,000 to get this thing fixed up and on the road." Well, if you're not there to approve that charge or deny it, or you do something worse, like just tell the manager to do whatever and spend all your money, all hell is going to break loose. Because, hey, maybe you need to replace that vehicle. Don't spend $5,000 on this thing. You need to just replace it, right? And being around to make those good, bigger decisions is going to be important. So someone that doesn't have the time in the middle of the day, they may say, "Hey, I need to have as little amount of breakdowns and little amount of problems as possible. Let's just get a new fleet." Even though that's probably not the best financial idea, I need to do this because I just don't have the time to deal with this. And so I need to minimize as many sort of incidents that I possibly can. So for the person that is more semi-absentee, they almost have to have a newer fleet versus someone that's got time in the middle of the day because they're not semi-absentee. They're around, they can handle the issues, and now that makes much better financial sense for them to have an older fleet. So it just sort of depends, right? So another thing under the contractor category is what you're trying to optimize for. So a lot of sellers will optimize for cash flow. They need to increase the cash flow, it makes their margins look better, makes more people interested in the business, higher valuation, all sorts of good stuff. Well, you can very easily do that by just neglecting the maintenance on the trucks. When the contractor gets a call from his mechanic and the mechanic's like, "Hey boss, this hose is gonna blow up in about, maybe 2 or 3 months. You want me to replace it now?" Contractor may say, "Nah, we gotta save that money. I need to get the cash flow nice and high. I need to make my margins look good because everyone's using margins to evaluate my business." Well, it's one of the biggest reasons, and there's many other reasons, why I hate using margins to evaluate these businesses, because they can be manipulated so damn easily by sellers. And so you always have to be aware of that. Don't use margins to evaluate these things financially. And the point is that some contractors that do want to optimize for certain things, they're okay with trucks breaking down in the middle of the day. They're okay with bickering with mechanics and negotiating with mechanics or being handy. They want to optimize for cash flow. Nothing wrong with that necessarily, right? And so, hey, that works for them. It may not work for you whatsoever. So you have to think about, what are we optimizing for? Are we optimizing for our time, our money, whatever it may be, right? And so to give you an example of something under the route condition category, let's say, for example, you're looking at buying a FedEx business and the fleet that's coming with it, it's average. It's not the best that you've ever seen. It's not the worst. It's average. You say, "Oh, okay." A lot of times people say, "Well, is this route in good standing, Mr. Broker?" And the broker says, "Oh, yes, it's in very good standing." "What a great question you've asked." And they say, "Well, is the contract likely to get renewed?" And the broker says, "Well, as long as everything's managed as it is currently, we see no reason why it wouldn't be renewed. Like, nobody knows the future, but very likely." And the buyer says, "Oh boy, I've done my evaluation here. Let's move forward." The problem is, if you don't know where you are in terms of those service levels, and if you're right above, let's say, the bare minimum, and you have any additional incidents, let's say a breakdown that causes service failures, that you find yourself on the chopping block, that you're not going to get your contract renewed, or you are going to get terminated even before it expires or whatever, this is a different scenario. So for that contractor that realizes this, they look at that business and say, "Hey, I have downside potential next year because I've got to replace this fleet. I've got to minimize as much as I can any sort of incidents that can happen in the middle of the day that will impact my service levels." So he's got to basically get a brand new shiny fleet to try to minimize those breakdowns and problems that can happen. Versus another contractor who's doing very well, he can have the occasional breakdown and deal with those things much better than this other contractor. Knowing where you are in that service level is really, really important. And you can see where one contractor is optimizing for his cash flow because, hey, he's available in the middle of the day. He's handy. He likes negotiating with mechanics. Versus this other contractor who's like, "I can't have any problems as much as I possibly can. I've got to eliminate those things, right? And so you're going to see different behaviors out of different contractors. It's really important stuff to think about and consider when you're looking at buying these things. So let's go over a couple things that pop up under the route types, right? So let's say, for example, are the routes urban or are they rural? So let's say, for example, if they are rural, well, if you have a breakdown in the middle of the day and you are 150 miles away from a tow truck, that might be a very different experience on whether you can get the problem solved, get a new truck out there or a spare truck or whatever, versus being in downtown Tampa, Florida, where they're 5 minutes away or there's tow trucks all over the place or whatever, right? So thinking about whether the routes are urban, suburban, or rural is going to be really important in determining, hey, what kind of reliability levels do I need to have on my fleet? Because someone that's downtown, hey, we don't care if it breaks down in the middle of the day. There's lots of mobile mechanics, there's lots of tow trucks, there's lots of people around, whatever. You could solve those problems much easier versus being in rural Wyoming or something with your routes, right? Where if someone breaks down, you've got big problems in terms of fixing those issues, right? So that takes some time to be able to figure out. So to give you another example of something under that route type category is, what is my supply of rental trucks? So for example, you may say, hey, I'm totally fine negotiating with mechanics. I'm available in the middle of the day. Hell, I'm pretty handy. And while the truck is being worked on, I'll just get a rental truck, no big deal. And then you go to U-Haul or you go to Ryder and there's no trucks for the size that you need. And now it's like, hey, now I've got some big problems. Now I might have to go, way across town or an hour down the road to be able to get a vehicle that I need. This is going to start to cause other sorts of issues versus being in a situation where there is an abundance of rental vehicles, because you're in a highly urbanized area versus rural areas where maybe the supply is much lower. So you may say, hey, I can't have an older fleet and have these things break down because dealing with the rental truck is not like going down the road and just picking up one and making it easy. It's hard. It might not even be possible. I might have service failures because I don't have enough trucks that just don't exist or whatever. Like, you have to start to think about these things ahead of time. And again, you may say, hey, an older fleet might be fine, or hey, I have to have a newer fleet because I cannot handle a breakdown. So that's another thing. So hopefully you can start to see now that there is no clear-cut answer and right or wrong way of managing your fleet. It is an art and it is dependent upon many different things under many different categories. And the more of those things that you know and the categories that you fully understand, the better you will make decisions in terms of how to manage that fleet. And so hopefully this helps out a bunch. If you got any questions, leave them in the comments below. Do the like, subscribe thing. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.